Guys who she friend-zoned. How did she react when you moved on and she lost her attention? Story 1. I was her safe guy. Lena literally introduced me at parties like, "This is Evan. He's basically my emotional support human." Every time I tried to make it real, she'd smile, pinch my cheek like I was a kid and say, "Don't ruin our friendship. You're too important." So I stopped. No speech. No fight. I just stepped back. 2 months later, I posted one photo with a girl from my gym. Mia. Just us at a food truck, laughing, her hand on my arm. That's it. Within 10 minutes, Lena. Wow. So that's what we're doing now? Me. Doing what, Lena? Replacing me. Replacing her. Like she owned the spot. She started accidentally showing up places. My gym, my coffee shop, my friend's birthday she wasn't invited to. The first time she saw Mia with me in person, she froze like she'd walked into a wall. Later that night, she called, crying. Lena, I didn't think you'd actually leave. Me, you told me to stay a friend. Lena, I thought you'd wait. That sentence snapped something in me. I realized she wasn't heartbroken because she loved me. She was panicking because her attention vending machine stopped working. I said, "I'm not a waiting room," and hung up. The next morning, she posted a story. Some people switch up when they get a little attention. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my phone. Mia asked, "Is she always like this?" I said, "Only when she can't control the narrative." And that was the last time Lena got to be the main character in my life. Story 2. I friend-zoned myself for 2 years because Jess was a master at making hope sound reasonable. Not right now. I'm not ready. You're too good to lose. Then she'd hold my arm during movies, text me at 2 a.m. when she was lonely and call me her future husband as a joke. Always a joke. The day I decided I was done, it was stupidly small. She canceled our plans because a guy she'd been talking to wanted to grab drinks. She didn't even apologize. She just said, "You get it." I did. More than she realized. So I started saying no. I stopped answering instantly. I stopped being her free therapist. And I said yes to other people. Real dates, real plans. 3 weeks later, I posted a story from a rooftop bar. A girl's laugh in the background. My hand clinking glasses with hers. Jess called me immediately. Jess, are you on a date? Me. Yeah, Jess. With HO. Me. Someone who asked. Silence. Then this sharp, offended inhale like I'd insulted her. Jess. So you're just done with me? Me. You were never me. She drove to my apartment. Not texted. Drove. When I opened the door, she was shaking. Jess, I didn't think you'd move on without telling me. Me. You didn't tell me about your drinks plans. She tried to push past me like she belonged there. I stepped in the doorway and blocked her. And that's when she did it. She reached for my face like she could pull me back into my old role with one touch. I said, calm as glass. You don't want me. You want the version of me that was always available. Her eyes went glossy. Jess, I can try. Me. You already did. For 2 years, she left crying. And 10 minutes later, my phone blew up with mutual friends. Jess says you blindsided her. Funny? I'd been standing in the same place the whole time. She just finally looked up and noticed I wasn't waiting. Story 3. Nora loved calling me her best guy friend in front of other dudes. It was like a leash. Whenever a guy she liked got distant, she'd loop her arm through mine in public and laugh too loud. Like, look, I'm wanted. I told myself it was harmless. Then she said the line that ended it, "You're perfect. Just not for me." So I took not for me seriously. I started hanging out with Kayla, a coworker who actually listened when I spoke. No mixed signals. No, maybe someday. Just real. The first time Nora saw Kayla's name pop up on my phone, she grabbed it. Literally snatched my phone like it was hers. Nora. Who's Kayla? Me. Give that back. Nora. Are you talking to her? Me. Yes. Nora. Why? That question blew my mind. Why would I talk to someone who likes me? I took the phone back and said, because she doesn't treat me like a spare tire. Nora's face went blank. Then she smiled. Sweet, fake, deadly. Oh, so you're mad at me. She tried to flip it into me being emotional, irrational, jealous. Classic. 2 days later, she posted an Instagram selfie with a guy, caption, "When you know your worth." I didn't react. Didn't view. Nothing. That's when she cracked. She started texting my friends. Has he said anything about me? Then she texted me, "I miss you." Our vibe was special. I replied, "Special for you." Confusing for me. She showed up at my place with coffee like we were in a rom-com. Nora, can we talk? Me. No. She blinked like she couldn't process the word. Nora, since when do you say no to me? Me. Since I realized you only notice me when I'm not available. Her eyes got wet, but her voice turned sharp. So you're choosing her over me? I said. You never chose me. You just didn't want anyone else to. I closed the door. She stayed outside for a full minute, silent, like she expected it to open again. It didn't. Story 4. I was friend-zoned by a girl who treated the friend zone like a subscription service. Pay attention, get a smile. Pull away, get a crisis. Olivia's favorite trick was the almost. I'd date you if we met at a different time. You're the kind of guy I should end up with. I don't want to lose you. Then she'd go date guys who made her feel alive and call me after they hurt her. One night she called crying because her boyfriend ghosted. I stayed on the phone for an hour. At the end she sniffled and said, "You're the only man who's ever really been there for me." I almost said, "Then choose me." Instead I said, "I can't do this anymore." She laughed like it was a joke. "Stop. You're not going anywhere." That sentence. Again. Like they all had the same script. So I quietly moved on. I didn't announce it. I didn't block her. I just stopped being her emergency contact. A month later, I started dating Tessa. We kept it low-key until my friend posted a group photo. Tessa leaning into me, my arm around her. Olivia commented within minutes. "Oh, who's that?" Then she texted me. "You didn't tell me you were seeing someone." I replied, "You didn't ask." She called. I ignored it. She called again. I ignored it. Then she sent, "Wow, so I guess I never mattered to you." That was her panic button. Guilt. I finally answered and said, "You mattered when you were lonely." That's not the same. There was a long pause, and then her voice turned small. "I thought you'd always be mine in some way." I said, "That's the problem. I'm not a pet." She showed up at our usual cafe the next day like it was an intervention. Olivia. "I think I made a mistake." Me. "You made a choice." Repeatedly, she watched me stand up to leave like she expected the universe to stop me. When it didn't, she started crying, loud. People stared. She didn't care. That was the point. I walked out anyway. Later, my friend texted, "She says you abandoned her." I texted back, "I graduated." Story 5. I used to think being friend-zoned meant, maybe later. With Rachel, it meant, keep circling until I decide. She'd flirt when it benefited her, especially when other girls were around. At my buddy's wedding, she clung to my arm all night, laughing at my jokes, touching my chest when she talked. Everyone assumed we were together. Then, at the end of the night, she said, "You're the perfect date because there's zero pressure. You're like my safe place." Safe place. Not a person, a service. The next week, I started going out with Danny, a bartender my friend introduced me to. Danny was direct. When she liked me, she said it. When she wanted to see me, she made plans. Rachel found out because she called me on a Friday night for the usual come over and talk routine. I didn't answer. I was out with Danny. Rachel. "Are you ignoring me?" Me. "I'm busy." Rachel. "Doing what?" Me. "Dating." She showed up at the bar. I didn't even know she knew where it was, but there she was. Perfect hair, tight smile, scanning the room like she was looking for stolen property. When she saw Danny sitting close to me, her face changed, like a mask slipped. Rachel walked up and said, sweet as poison, "Oh my God, hi. I'm Rachel. I'm basically his best friend." Danny looked at me, eyebrow raised. I said, "We used to be close." Rachel's smile twitched. "Used to?" Then she did the most unhinged thing. She leaned down like she was about to kiss my cheek. I turned my head so it didn't land. Her eyes flashed. Rachel. "Seriously?" Me. "Yeah, seriously." Danny stood up, calm and tall. "Do you need something?" Rachel laughed loud. "No, I just wanted to make sure he's okay. He gets attached." That was her final attempt to shrink me. I looked Rachel dead in the face and said, "I'm not attached. I'm just not available anymore." The bar went quiet around us like people could smell drama. Rachel's eyes filled fast. Not sad, furious. "So this is how you pay me back?" she hissed. I said, "Pay you back for what? Letting me wait?" Danny took my hand and squeezed once. That was all I needed. Rachel stormed out, and 10 minutes later I saw her story. When boys can't handle friendship. Danny read it over my shoulder and laughed. Friendship doesn't look like ownership. For the first time in years, I felt free, and Rachel couldn't stand it. Story 6. Tara had this way of making the friend zone sound like a VIP lounge. "You're the only guy I can be myself with," she'd say, then disappear for a week because some new, mysterious dude texted her back. I finally stopped being her midnight hotline. No more, "Can I call?" at 1:47 a.m. No more driving across town because she felt unsafe after a party, only to find her laughing with friends. When I started dating Alina, I didn't even post her. I just got quieter, happier, less online. Tara noticed the silence like it was an alarm. She started sending memes, then voice notes, then the classic, "Are you mad at me?" I replied once, "I'm busy." 2 days later, she showed up at my office with coffee like we were in a sitcom. My coworkers watched from their desks like they were front row at a play. Tara smiled too wide. I brought your favorite. I said, you don't know my favorite. Her face flickered. She laughed like I was flirting. Stop. Of course I do. I didn't move. I changed. That's when the panic hit her eyes. Changed? Because of who? I shrugged. Someone who actually asks. She followed me out to the parking lot, voice rising. So you're just replacing me? I turned, calm. You can't be replaced if you never chose the role. She froze. Then, like a switch flipped, she started crying. Big, dramatic tears. Loud enough that people looked. I can't believe you're doing this to me, she said. To her. Always to her. I got into my car and drove away. By the time I got home, she'd posted, some men only pretend to be kind until they don't get what they want. Alina read it and said, that's funny, because it looks like she only pretended to care until she lost control. And for once, I didn't defend Tara. I just let her story die without an audience. Story 7. Maya friend-zoned me so casually it felt like a weather report. You're such a good guy, Liam. I'd ruin you. Then she'd lean her head on my shoulder like she wasn't the one doing the ruining. One night at a house party, I saw her flirting with some dude who couldn't even remember her major. She glanced at me across the room, like checking if I was watching, like I was supposed to feel something. I did. Disgust. So I left early. Didn't say bye. Didn't text after. The next morning, she messaged, where'd you go? I was looking for you. I wrote, home. She sent a laughing emoji like it was cute. You're dramatic. That word. Dramatic. Like my feelings were a hobby. 2 weeks later, I met Harper at a volunteering event. She was warm, direct, and she didn't collect people for attention. We went for tacos. Then a movie. Then suddenly I was in that quiet, safe kind of happy. Maya noticed when I stopped orbiting her. She called me while I was on a date. I didn't answer. She texted, it's urgent. I replied later, what's up, Maya? Never mind. I see you're busy with your little girlfriend. Little girlfriend. Next time we ran into each other, Maya didn't even say hi. She just stared at Harper's hand in mine like it was offensive. Later, she cornered me by the drinks table. So you're really doing this? Doing what? Acting like I don't matter. I laughed. Not mean. Just shocked. Maya, you made sure I knew I didn't. Her eyes got shiny. I didn't mean it like that. I said, that's the problem. You never meant anything. You just liked the attention. She walked away fast, wiping tears like she was the victim of some betrayal. And that's when I realized, in her head, I wasn't a person. I was a spotlight. Story 8. Nina's favorite move was to flirt just enough to keep me hopeful, then slap the friend label on it the second I got brave. She'd text, I miss you, then follow it with bestio like a seatbelt. She'd sit on my lap at parties, then laugh and say, relax, you're like my brother. I kept thinking, maybe one day she'll see me. Then I saw myself, tired, anxious, always waiting for crumbs. So I stopped feeding the loop. I muted her on everything. Not blocked. Just quiet. A month later, I met Chloe through my cousin. Chloe was the opposite of Nina. No games, no tests, no prove you want me. She was just there. Nina noticed when I stopped reacting to her stories. That was her oxygen. She DM'd, did I do something? I didn't answer. She sent another. Hello? Still nothing. Then she posted a selfie with a caption, when your best friend switches up. My cousin sent me a screenshot and wrote, is she talking about you? I said, apparently. The next weekend, Nina showed up at my place unannounced. Hair perfect, eyes puffy like she'd rehearsed. I'm worried about you, she said. I leaned on the doorframe. You're worried about losing access. She flinched like I slapped her. That's not fair. I said, what's not fair is you flirting until you get what you want, then calling me brother to shut me up. She whispered, so, you hate me now? I smiled, tired. No, I just don't want you. That hit her harder than hate ever could. Her mouth opened, closed. Then she just stared, like she couldn't compute a world where she wasn't desired by default. She left without saying goodbye. And that was the first time I felt like I owned my own attention again. Story 9. I was Owen, the good friend. Sierra called me that like a title. She'd introduced me to guys she dated. This is Owen. He's harmless. Harmless. Like I was a golden retriever. One day she asked me to take pictures of her for a dating profile. I stood there holding her phone while she practiced smiles that weren't for me. Something in my chest just shut off. After that, I stopped responding fast. Stopped showing up whenever she snapped her fingers. Then I met Elise at a bookstore cafe. We argued over a novel like it was foreplay. She laughed at my jokes and looked at me like I was actually there. Sierra saw us together 2 weeks later, me and Elise, laughing in the same cafe Sierra used to drag me to for friend dates. Her face went pale. She walked over like she was marching into court. Wow, she said. Eyes locked on Elise. Didn't think you had it in you. Elise blinked. Sorry? Sierra ignored her and looked at me. So you're replacing me with this? Elise's eyebrows went up, but she stayed calm. I said, Sierra, you never dated me. Sierra snapped, because I didn't want to ruin it. I finally said what I'd never allowed myself to say. You didn't want to lose the benefits. Her lips parted like she'd been caught stealing. She tried to laugh it off. You're being weird. I nodded. Yeah? Weird as realizing I was your boyfriend without the title. Sierra's eyes filled with tears, but her voice got sharp. You promised you'd always be there. I said, I promised to be your friend, not your backup plan. When she stormed out, Elise squeezed my hand and said, Is she always like that? I exhaled. Only when she's not the center of attention. Story 10. Paige kept me in the friend zone with compliments like chains. You're husband material, she'd say. Then go chase men who treated her like a weekend option. Whenever I pulled away, she'd reel me back with one dramatic message. I feel like you're abandoning me. So I stayed. I listened. I helped. I waited. Like an idiot. Then one day she forgot my birthday. Not busy. Not oops. She just didn't care enough to remember. That night she called crying about her new guy. He left me on red for 2 days, she sobbed. I sat there staring at the missed birthday candles on my kitchen counter. Something my sister bought me. I didn't even feel angry. I felt done. I said, Paige, I can't do this anymore. Silence. Do what? Be the person you run to after you choose someone else. She laughed like she didn't believe me. Stop. You'll be fine. 2 weeks later, I started dating Camilla. I didn't hide it, but I didn't announce it either. We just existed, peacefully. Paige found out when she saw Camilla's name flash on my phone while we were grabbing lunch. Her face changed instantly. Who's that? I said. My girlfriend. Paige's fork clattered. You didn't tell me, I said. You didn't tell me happy birthday. Her eyes widened like that was a cheap shot. That was an accident. I shrugged. So was me realizing I deserve better. Paige's voice trembled. So what, you're just gone? I nodded. Yeah, she started crying right there, loud enough for people to look. Then she whispered, furious through tears. You're doing this to punish me. I leaned in and said quietly, No, I'm doing this to save me. And the wild part? She didn't look heartbroken. She looked offended, like I'd revoked a privilege she thought she'd owned forever. Story 11. Vika used to call me her favorite person, like it was a compliment. But it always came with rules. I could be close, just not too close. I could be important, just not the one. She'd send selfies with Miss You. And then, the second I tried to read it as anything real, she'd laugh and say, you're my best friend. So I did something that felt illegal. I stopped chasing clarity from someone who enjoyed confusion. I met Daria at a friend's game night. She wasn't loud, she wasn't flashy. She just noticed things. The way I listened, the way I held back, the way my whole face changed when I laughed for real. We started grabbing coffee, then dinners. Then I realized I wasn't anxious all the time. Vika noticed the drop-off in attention like a phone battery hitting 1%. She texted, Why are you acting distant? I replied, I've been busy. She sent, Busy with who? The first time she saw me and Daria together, Vika walked up like she owned the sidewalk. Oh my God, hi, she said, hugging me too long. Then she turned to Daria and smiled, sharp. I'm Vika. I'm basically his person. Daria just nodded. Nice to meet you. Vika's smile tightened. So, you two are a thing? I said. Yeah, she blinked fast. Since when? Since someone actually wanted me. It was like I'd spoken a language she didn't know. Vika's eyes got shiny, her voice small. I thought we had something special. I finally said it. We had you taking and me hoping. She got angry immediately. Wow, so I'm the villain now? I shrugged. No, you're just not the main character in my life anymore. She walked away shaking. And an hour later, she posted a story. Men always leave when you don't give them what they want. Daria read it and smiled. Funny. It sounds like she's mad she didn't get what she wanted. Story 12. Mila friend-zoned me in public and flirted with me in private. It was like she needed an audience for her boundaries and no witnesses for her benefits. At parties, she'd say, This is my buddy Alex, and slap my shoulder like I was one of the guys. Then at 2 a.m., she'd text, I'm in my feelings. Come over? I went. Because I was stupid and because loneliness makes you accept scraps. One night she fell asleep on my chest while we watched a movie. Her hand was on my stomach, fingers tracing circles. I thought, this is it. This is the moment. The next morning she stretched, yawned, and said, I'm so glad you're not weird. Some guys always misread things. That was the moment. Not romantic. Surgical. I stopped coming over. When she asked why, I said, I'm done being convenient. A month later, I started seeing Nina, my sister's friend. We were low-key, calm, real. The kind of relationship where you don't feel like you're auditioning. Mila found out when she called me for a late-night rescue, and Nina answered my phone. By accident, because I'd left it on the couch. Mila, Nina said politely. He's in the shower. Silence. Then Mila's voice turned icy. Who is this? Nina. His girlfriend. When I got out, my phone had 6 missed calls and a text. Call me now. I did, because curiosity is a disease. Mila didn't even say hi. So you have a girlfriend now? Yep. And you didn't tell me. You didn't tell me I was just your convenience. She started crying. Like real crying. I didn't know you'd actually leave, I said. That's the problem, Mila. You thought I couldn't, and she didn't sound heartbroken. She sounded terrified that her safety net had learned how to walk. Story 13. Sophia treated the friend zone like a revolving door. She'd pull me in when she was bored, push me out when she got attention, then act shocked when I wasn't waiting with a smile. Her worst habit was calling me husband as a joke in front of her friends. If all men were like you, I'd be married already, she'd laugh. And everyone would, aw. Then she'd go home with a guy who forgot her last name. One night, I finally said, do you even see me as a man? She laughed, actually laughed, and said, don't be dramatic. I love you. Like family, like family. The cleanest knife in the drawer. So I stopped playing along. No more rides, no more fixing her Wi-Fi, no more listening to her cry about men who didn't deserve her. I started dating Lena, a girl from my running club. Lena didn't need me to prove I was worthy. She just liked me. Sophia noticed the moment I stopped replying instantly. She started sending check-in texts every few hours like I was a missing pet. When I didn't bite, she escalated. She invited me to lunch. I went, because I wanted closure. Sophia showed up dressed like it was a first date. She sat across from me, leaned in and said, so, are you seeing someone? I said, yes. Her eyes widened, like she'd expected me to say no forever. Who? Someone who doesn't call me family when it's convenient. Sophia's face turned red. So you're punishing me? I said, no, I'm choosing me. She slammed her water glass down. You're really going to throw away us? I stared at her. There is no us. There's you. And there's me waiting. She looked stunned, like she genuinely believed the friend zone came with lifelong access. When I left, she followed me outside and hissed, you'll regret this. I turned and said, I regretted it for years. This is me finally stopping. Story 14. Lena loved to keep men in categories. Boyfriend material was a distant shelf, and friend who worships me was right at eye level. Guess where I lived? She'd invite me to every event, sit next to me, laugh at my jokes, then casually mention the guy she was sort of seeing, like she was doing me a favor by being honest. I tried to confess once. She interrupted me mid-sentence with, nope, don't. I can't lose you. That sounded sweet, until I realized what it meant. Stay exactly where you are so I can keep using you. So I stepped back. I stopped being the first one to text. I stopped showing up. And then I met Irina, a friend of a friend. Irina wasn't impressed by drama. She didn't test me. She didn't fish for compliments. She just asked, do you want to go out Friday? Like it was the simplest thing in the world. When Lena found out, she didn't even pretend to be happy. She called me and said, so I guess you're too busy for your friends now. I said, I'm making time for someone who makes time for me. Lena's voice sharpened. Wow, okay. So you're mad because I didn't date you? I said, no. I'm done because you treated me like a toy you didn't want anyone else to play with. She went quiet. Then she whispered, that's not what happened. I said, then why does it feel like you only want me now that you can't have me? She tried to schedule a hangout, like old times. I declined. She offered again. I declined again. Finally, she snapped, you're really choosing her over me? I said, you never chose me. You just didn't want to lose me. She hung up, and I watched her unfollow me, then follow me again, like she was struggling with the concept of boundaries. Irina saw it and said, she's not sad you're gone. She's sad she can't pull you back. And that was the clearest I'd ever heard my life. Story 15. Kira used me as her proof that she was lovable. When she felt insecure, she'd call me. When a guy rejected her, she'd come sit in my car and cry. Then when she felt better, she'd vanish. One time she literally said, if I don't end up with someone, I'll just marry you, and laughed like it was harmless. I laughed too, because what else do you do when someone turns your feelings into a punchline? Then I met Sarah. Sarah didn't want a punchline. She wanted a partner. The first time she held my hand in public, I felt my whole nervous system relax. Kira noticed my calm. That's what set her off. She texted, you've changed. I replied, I've healed. She sent, who is she? I didn't answer. I didn't owe her the details of the life she kept ignoring. A week later, Sarah and I were at a small concert when I felt a tap on my shoulder. Kira was there, eyes wide, like she'd been searching for me. "Can we talk?" she asked, loud enough that people turned. Sarah looked at me, waiting. No jealousy, just trust. I stepped aside with Kira. She immediately went for the throat. "So you're with her now?" I said. "Yes," Kira's voice shook. "And I don't matter anymore?" I said. "You mattered when you needed comfort. That's not love." Her eyes filled. "I didn't know you'd actually move on," I said. "You never thought I was allowed to." She grabbed my wrist. "I can give you a chance now." I gently pulled my hand back. "I don't want a now. I wanted a yes." Kira stared at me like I'd rewritten the rules of the world. Then she turned to Sarah and said, desperate, He's just confused." Sarah smiled politely and said, "No, he's finally clear." Kira's face crumpled. Not because she lost me, because she lost the attention. And I walked back to Sarah feeling lighter than I'd felt in years. Story 16. Nastia used to keep me on a tight little emotional leash. If I didn't reply in 10 minutes, she'd send. If I replied too fast, she'd joke, "Aw, you're obsessed." If I pulled back, she'd panic. It was like she wanted my attention but not my feelings. She called me her best friend in public, loudly. But in private, she'd send soft voice notes at night. "I feel safe with you." Then, the second I got hopeful, she'd snap back into jokes and say, "Don't make it weird." One day I got tired of feeling like a secret and a punchline at the same time. I started going to a climbing gym. Met Yulia there. Chalk on her hands, confidence in her eyes. No games. No fishing for compliments. She asked me to grab food after we climbed, and it felt so simple I almost didn't trust it. Nastia noticed immediately that I wasn't orbiting her anymore. She started calling at the exact times she used to, like she had scheduled access to me. I stopped answering. Then she showed up at the climbing gym. I saw her before she saw me, standing near the entrance with that casual surprise expression people use when they planned something for days. Yulia was laughing beside me, tying her hair up. Nastia's eyes locked on Yulia's hand on my arm, and her face went stiff. She walked over and smiled too bright. "Oh my God. Hi. I didn't know you came here," I said. "Yeah, it's good." She looked at Yulia like she was an object in the way. "And who's this?" "Yulia." "I'm Yulia." Nastia turned back to me, ignoring her. "So you're, what, dating now?" I nodded. "Yeah." Nastia's smile cracked. "Wow. You moved on fast," I said. "No." I stopped waiting. Her eyes filled instantly. "So I'm just nothing?" I finally said it. "You treated me like a button. Press for attention. Release when you're satisfied." Nastia swallowed hard, then hissed, "You're doing this to hurt me." I shook my head. "I'm doing this so I can stop hurting myself." She stormed out like she wanted everyone to see. Yulia watched her go and said, "Calm. That girl doesn't miss you. She misses the control." Story 17. Oksana had a habit of giving me almost moments. She'd rest her head on my shoulder during movies, link arms with me in public and call me my person. Then whenever I tried to define it, she'd smile and say, "Don't ruin it. Friends are better." Friends were better, because friends didn't ask for commitment. The breaking point was my graduation. She promised she'd come. I reserved a seat for her parents too, because she said they might join. She didn't show up. No text. No call. 3 hours later, she messaged, "Sorry, got caught up. Congrats though." Caught up. On my graduation day. I didn't respond. A week later, I met Katya at a small cafe. She complimented my book, not my looks. We talked for 2 hours and didn't once flirt in that confusing halfway way. At the end, she said, "I like you. Want to go out Saturday?" My brain almost glitched from the directness. When Oksana saw a picture of me and Katya at a winter market, she called immediately. "Is that your girlfriend?" "Yeah." "What the hell? You didn't even tell me you were dating. You didn't tell me you weren't coming to my graduation." Silence. Then her voice went tiny. "That's not the same." I laughed, bitter. "It's exactly the same. I was there for you. You weren't there for me." Oksana showed up at my place the next day, holding a little gift bag like she could rewrite time with a candle and a smile. "I brought you something," she said, eyes shiny. "Can we talk?" I didn't invite her in. "Talk about what?" "About us." I stared at her. "There is no us." Her lip trembled. "But you always waited?" I finished. "Yeah. And I'm not doing that anymore." She started crying and said the line that made everything clear. "I didn't think you'd actually choose someone else." Choose someone else. Not, "I love you," not, "I want you." Just choose. I nodded. I did. And she chose me back. Story 18. Polina liked having me around because I made her feel important. She'd call me when she was bored and say, "Come entertain me." She said it like a joke, but she meant it. If I didn't answer, she'd post thirst traps with captions like, "Men are so disappointing." Then she'd message me privately. Not you, though. You're different. Different, aka obedient. I tried to ask her out once. She laughed and said, I could never date you. You're too sweet. I'd feel guilty. That should have been my exit sign. Instead, I stayed because I thought sweetness was currency. Then one night she called me crying because her ex posted photos with his new girlfriend. She was shaking with rage. I listened for an hour, calming her down like I always did. At the end, she sighed and said, I'm so lucky I have you. Something in me snapped, quiet and final. I said, you don't have me. She froze. What? I'm done. I can't keep being your emotional pillow. She laughed, sharp. You'll be back. I said, no. 2 weeks later, I was dating Anya. Anya didn't need rescuing. She wanted partnership. The first time she hugged me, I realized how tense my body had been for years. Polina found out and went nuclear. She called my phone 10 times. Then she messaged Anya on Instagram. Just so you know, he's been obsessed with me for years. Anya showed me the DM and asked, is that true? I said, I used to like her. She liked my attention. We ran into Polina at a mall. She marched up like she was coming to reclaim property. She smiled at Anya and said, so you're the new one, Anya. Yes, Polina turned to me. You're really doing this? After everything? I looked at her and said, everything was me giving and you taking. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. You're just with her to make me jealous. I smiled, calm. If I wanted to make you jealous, I'd still be your friend. This is me being free. Her face went red. She opened her mouth to lash out, then realized people were watching. She stormed off, again, loud and dramatic. And Anya squeezed my hand and whispered, she's not mad you moved on. She's mad you moved on without her permission. Story 19. Alina, yeah, another Alina, used to say I was her standard. Like, if I ever meet a guy like you, I'll marry him. Then she'd date men who treated her like a backup. She'd come to me with the same script every time. Why do I always pick the wrong guys? And I'd comfort her, like a fool, thinking maybe one day she'd realize the right guy was sitting right here. Then she asked me to pretend to be her boyfriend at a family dinner so her aunt would stop nagging her. I agreed, because I was still addicted to proximity. At the dinner, she held my hand, smiled at me, leaned into me. Her family adored me. Her dad clapped my shoulder and said, keep this one. On the drive home, my heart was racing. I thought, this is it. She felt it too. She dropped my hand and said, casual, that was fun. You're such a good friend. Friend. I pulled over and just sat there. What? She asked. I said, I can't do this anymore. She laughed. Do what? Be your pretend boyfriend and real therapist. Her smile fell. You're overreacting. I said, no, I'm finally reacting. A month later, I started dating Olya, a girl from my language class. We were slow and real. No pretending, no performances. Alina saw us together at a cafe and walked over with that same confident smile, like she expected me to light up for her. Instead, I stayed calm. She looked at Olya and said, oh, hi, I'm Alina. I'm basically his closest friend. Olya smiled politely. Nice to meet you. Alina's eyes flicked back to me. So you're dating now? Yes, and you didn't tell me. I said, you didn't tell me I mattered beyond convenience. She went pale. That's not true. I leaned forward. Then why did you only hold my hand when your aunt was watching? She stared at me like I'd stolen her favorite toy. Then she whispered, I didn't think you'd stop. I nodded. I did. Story 20. Sasha loved calling me her comfort person. The phrase sounded sweet until I realized comfort people don't get chosen. They get used. Whenever she got insecure, she'd FaceTime me. Whenever she got bored, she'd invite me out. Whenever she got attention from another guy, she'd forget I existed. And every time I tried to set a boundary, she'd do this soft little voice. Please don't leave me. You're all I have. It worked. For too long. The day I finally broke the pattern, she texted me a selfie with the caption, need you, and followed it with, come over. I'm sad, I replied. Can't. I'm on a date. Her response was instant. What? I didn't even know she could type that fast. She spammed, with who? Are you serious? You're joking, I replied once. No. 10 minutes later, she called. Her voice was shaky, angry. So you're just replacing me? I said. You're not my girlfriend, she snapped. I know that. But I'm still important. That was the moment. She didn't say she loved me. She said she was important. I told her, Sasha, you don't want me. You want access. She started crying hard. I didn't know you'd do this to me, I said. I didn't know you'd do this to me for years. When I got home, my date, Liza, texted, had a really good time. I like how calm you are. I stared at the message and felt this weird grief for the version of me that accepted chaos as love. Sasha posted a story later, when your best friend betrays you. And for the first time, I didn't rush to fix her feelings. I just kept moving. Story 21. I was the good one in Elisa's life. The one she could always count on, as long as I didn't count on her. She'd invite me to concerts, lean into me for photos, then caption them, "My bestie," like a warning label. When I finally asked her straight up, "Do you ever see me differently?" she smiled and said, "Don't be silly. You're too valuable to risk." That sounded like a compliment until I realized it meant, "You're too useful to date." So I stopped being useful. I didn't answer the late-night calls. I didn't drop everything when she had a crisis. I didn't accidentally show up where she was to keep the connection alive. I just stepped out of the loop. A month later, I started seeing Eva, a friend of my cousin. It wasn't explosive, it wasn't messy. It was quiet, respectful, the kind of relationship where you feel your shoulders drop. Elisa noticed because my attention stopped feeding her. She texted, "We need to talk," I replied. "About what?" "About why you're acting like I don't exist." That line made me laugh. She only felt my absence when it affected her. When I told her I was dating someone, she went silent, then said, soft, "So you're really leaving me behind?" I said, "You left me in place for years." She showed up outside my building with tears already loaded. "I made a mistake," she whispered. I didn't even feel angry. I felt clarity. "What mistake? You never chose me." She wiped her face. "I thought you'd always be there." I nodded. "Yeah, that's what you liked." Her eyes widened like I'd committed a crime by naming it. Later, she posted a quote about loyalty and people changing, and mutual friends started hinting that I should make peace. But Eva looked at me and said, "Peace isn't you shrinking so someone else feels safe." That sentence felt like oxygen. Story 22. Dina friend-zoned me so hard she started calling me her brother. Not joking. Full commitment. "My brother, my protector," she'd say. Then asked me to carry her bags and fix her car and listen to her cry about dudes who didn't get her. One night she got dumped and called me shaking. I drove over. She opened the door and hugged me like she was drowning. "I don't know what I'd do without you," she sobbed. I almost said, "Then be with me." Instead, I realized something terrifying. She didn't love me. She loved having me. I pulled back after that. No big fight. Just fewer answers, fewer rescues. Then I met Zhenya at a photography class. She complimented my work and asked about my life. My life, not Dina's drama. We started going on walks, taking pictures of the city, talking about everything except other people's mess. Dina noticed I wasn't available and went into search mode. She called me. I didn't pick up. She sent, "Are you dead?" I replied later, "No." "Busy?" "With who?" "With someone." She showed up at my photography class the next week, sat in the back like she was auditing my freedom. After class, she marched up, smiling at Zhenya like a threat. "Hi, I'm Dina. I'm basically his family." Zhenya smiled politely. "Nice to meet you." Dina turned to me. "So this is why you've been ignoring me," I said. "I haven't been ignoring you. I've been living." Her eyes filled with tears. "So I don't matter?" I said. "You mattered. Just never enough to choose." Dina's face twisted like she'd been slapped. "You're making me the bad guy." I shrugged. "No. You did that by keeping me close and calling it nothing." She stormed out, and Zhenya quietly said, "She's not losing a friend. She's losing a mirror." Story 23. Kat had a weird talent. She could flirt while still sounding innocent. She'd send heart emojis, call me babe, as a joke, sit on my couch in my hoodie, and the second I tried to label it, she'd laugh and say, "You're my friend. Relax." It was emotional whiplash. And I stayed, because I thought if I proved I was patient, she'd finally pick me. Then she did something small that changed everything. She invited me to a party, promised we'd go together, then ditched me at the door because a guy she liked showed up. She didn't even look back. I stood there holding the gift like an idiot. That night I left early and muted her. A couple weeks later I started dating Marta, a girl from my workplace. We kept it simple. Movies, dinner, random midnight walks. No tests. No prove you want me. It felt like switching from static to music. Kat found out because she saw Marta drop me off once. She called immediately. "Is that your girlfriend?" she demanded. "Yes." Kat laughed. Harsh. "Wow. And you didn't tell me." I said, "You didn't care." That made her quiet. Then she tried the soft voice. "I care. You know I care." I said, "You care when you're losing me." Kat showed up at my apartment the next day with her eyes already red. "I didn't know you were serious about moving on," she whispered. I opened the door wider but didn't invite her in. "I'm serious about being respected." She stepped closer. "I could try us." That was the first time she offered me something real. Right when I didn't want it, I shook my head. I don't want to be your emergency choice. Her face twisted into anger. So you're doing this to punish me? I smiled, tired. No. I'm doing this because I finally stopped punishing myself. She left and slammed my stairwell door so hard the building shook. Marta heard the story and just said, she didn't lose you. She lost the option. Story 24. I was the sweet guy in Olya's story. The one she'd text when she wanted compliments, validation, someone to say, no, you're not crazy. She'd say things like, you're the only man I trust. And I'd swallow my feelings like medicine. One day she said, if I ever date you, I'd probably marry you. I asked, so why not date me? She laughed like I'd told a cute joke. Because you're too safe. I need sparks. Sparks. Translation. Chaos. That night I went home and sat in silence for an hour, realizing she'd basically admitted she liked me as a shelter, not a partner. So I stopped being her shelter. A month later, I met Nadia at the gym. She was blunt in the best way. When she liked me, she said it. When she didn't like something, she said that too. It felt like stepping into clean air. Olya noticed the change and started acting like I'd broken a contract. She called me while I was out with Nadia. I didn't answer. She texted, are you with someone? I replied, yes, Olya. So you're replacing me. You can't be replaced if you never took the spot. When she saw me with Nadia in person, she walked up smiling like she was fine, until she wasn't. This is my friend, she told Nadia, wrapping her arm around me. We're super close. Nadia looked at her arm, then at me. I gently moved away. Olya's smile flickered. Seriously? She whispered. I said, boundaries. Her eyes went wet. I didn't think you'd set those with me. I said, that's why I have to. She left shaking, and later she messaged me. I hope she breaks your heart. I didn't respond. Because someone who only wants your attention will always hate the person who finally gets your piece. Story 25. Svetlana's favorite phrase was, you're my safe guy. She'd say it like it was romantic, like it meant I was special. But it really meant I was the guy she could rely on while she chased men who didn't rely on her. She'd show up at my place in sweatpants, steal my food, fall asleep on my couch, and then leave in the morning like nothing happened. If I tried to talk about feelings, she'd laugh and call me cute. Then one night she introduced me to a guy at a bar and said, this is my friend. He's basically my emotional support. The guy laughed. I forced a smile. Something in me went cold. I started spending time with another girl, Vera, someone who didn't treat me like an accessory. We started dating quietly. Svetlana found out when she asked me to come over to hang, and I said, I can't. I'm with my girlfriend. Her voice turned sharp. Your girlfriend? Since when do you have a girlfriend? I said. Since someone wanted me, not just my attention. Svetlana went silent, then hit me with the soft voice. I didn't know you felt that way. I said, you did. You just liked it. The next day she showed up at my door with a bag of my favorite snacks. Except they weren't my favorites. They were hers. She smiled like she'd done something huge. Can we talk? I think I messed up. I leaned on the door frame. What did you mess up? Us. I laughed once. There was no us. There was you using me as a cushion. Her eyes filled. I didn't mean to. I said, that's the scary part. You didn't even notice. She whispered, I miss you. I said, you miss being able to reach me whenever you want. She stood there shaking, like she couldn't understand a world where I had an off switch. I closed the door gently, not angry, just done. And for the first time, the silence felt like peace instead of punishment. Story 26. Lara's version of friendship came with perks, mostly for her. She'd text me, I'm bored, and expect me to appear. She'd send selfies for approval. She'd drag me to parties so guys would see she had options, and when I tried to bring up my feelings, she'd smile like I was adorable and say, no, don't ruin what we have. What we had was her having a boyfriend experience without the responsibility. The last straw was her birthday. She made me plan half of it, reservations, rides, even the cake, then spent the entire night glued to a guy who didn't know her last name. At the end, she kissed my cheek and said, you're literally the best friend ever. I don't know what I'd do without you. I didn't answer. I just went home. The next day, she texted, why are you being weird? I replied, I'm not being weird. I'm leaving. She spammed calls like I'd stolen something. Leaving where? I said. Out of your orbit. 2 weeks later, I was dating Maria, my friend's cousin. Maria was quiet confidence. She didn't demand attention, she earned it. Being with her felt like exhaling after holding my breath for years. Lara found out when she saw us at a cafe and walked over like she was storming a stage. She ignored Maria and spoke to me like we were alone. So you just replaced me? I said. You can't be replaced if you never chose me. Her face went blank. Then she laughed, sharp. Wow, so you're bitter. I said, no. I'm finally honest. Lara's eyes got wet. I didn't think you'd actually move on. I nodded. That's why I had to. She left, and 10 minutes later she posted, some guy's fake friendship to get with you. Maria saw it and said, no. Some girls fake closeness to keep you available. I didn't even argue. I just held Maria's hand and kept my peace.